MacVoices is supported by LinkedIn Jobs. Find the right person for your business today with LinkedIn Jobs. Pay what you want and get $50 off your first job post at linkedin.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, in the first part of our conversation with Mike Schmitz, we started to discuss productivity during lockdown and some of the ways that you can be productive and whether you should or shouldn't be productive during this time of stress and challenges and lifestyle changes. In this episode, we get a little more into some of the methodology and some of the concepts that Mike believes in and that you may want to take a look at and see what they mean for you. And Mike also sort of gives us permission not to be as productive as maybe we think we should be during these times of challenge. So let's get back to the conversation with Mike. Mike, how do you feel about using some of this time and, again, trying to balance it out between how busy you are with all this extra time? Is this a good time to take on courses? I mean, the time blocking thing sounds like it's perfect for right now, but those kind of courses that will teach you to do other things or advance your skills. Is this a good time, you think, to take those on, or does that present a motivational challenge?
I think it depends. I think that if you really do have the time and the energy to devote to those things, then yeah, maybe this is an opportunity for you to go through those courses that you bought and then just you never accessed them. But also, I think that this kind of speaks to the New York Times article about stop trying to be productive. Like, stop trying to do things with time that you don't really have. I think if you were to say, well, it's now or never, like never been a better time for me to go through this course, but if you're realistic with it, you're still not going to get through it anyways, then you are kind of setting yourself up for disappointment and failure. So I would caution about using that generally speaking. I think the general advice is it's okay to not do stuff. But if you find yourself with excess time, that would be a good way to spend it. If you are able to convince yourself that, yeah, hey, I should go through this course instead of binging Netflix, because that's what you were going to do instead, then go for it. But recognize basically what you've got to work with and don't beat yourself up.
Yeah, I look at some of this because I know it's interesting. On Facebook, there are musicians who are doing not exactly concerts, but little mini sessions of maybe a half an hour, 40 minutes, to entertain their fans. They're all kind of, in fact, just I think as we recorded this today, Apple opened up some of the TV series on Apple Plus so that you don't even have to have one of the free subscriptions. You can just go in and watch it. I think it's great that a lot of these services are doing this, and they're providing ways for us to occupy our time. And then there's that little nagging thing at the back of my mind that says, yeah, but that's just, if I wasn't going to do it before, why am I doing it now? And wouldn't it be better if I just kept on working or was productive? And so I almost get this guilty feeling that, yeah, this is all great and stuff, but I really should be doing this over here.
That's the dangerous thing, is when you project that stuff and you say what you just said, I should be doing this thing. Be careful that you don't overuse that word, because if you keep saying, I should do this, I should do this, I should do that, and you only follow through on 50% of it, then you've proven to yourself that you can't trust your word. And what you really want to do, and really the whole idea behind time blocking, is saying, these are the 3 things that I should do today. Really should do these things, and you give yourself enough space and enough margin that absolutely you are going to get those 3 things done. If you can squeeze in another thing, go for it. And that's some of the advice that we talk about in the time blocking courses. You budget these things, you go through it, and if you still have an hour in your workday, then go back to your task manager and grab something else to work on. But you're not going to add that at the beginning thinking that, oh yeah, easily I can do 4 instead of 3. No, stick to 3. Because if you don't get to that 4th one, now you're going to feel bad about it. It's not worth it. Your emotional energy is really the thing that's going to allow you to follow through and do the things that are on your task list. You can have the time and space to do something, and you can know exactly what you want to do. But if you don't have the energy to show up and to do the work, it's just not going to happen. And I feel like that's the piece that a lot of people forget about, or maybe they minimize it because they feel like, oh yeah, I can just snap my fingers and I'll be in a positive mental state. Pff, motivation, that's no problem. I got this. I got willpower. I got self-control. No, you don't.
Oh, gee, I feel like I need time on the couch after you telling me some of these things, Mike.
I'm not trying to paint a negative picture of you can't do as much as you think you can. I'm student number one in the school of positive thinking. But I think it's also important to be realistic. And I think that the important thing is not the amount of effort you're able to get done in any one day, even if it is a Herculean amount of effort. It is the sustainability, it is the consistency, the habit of showing up every day and being productive that far outweighs any amount of production that you are able to produce on a single day.
Yeah, I think you're right. And unfortunately, if you watch the morning news or read, the morning paper, if you're one of those, or if you look at anything online, it's you have to be careful not to set your day up in a negative fashion or from a negative mood, because it can be hard to approach things with a positive outlook if you've just been told, okay, we're probably going to be on lockdown for another 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, whatever, and there have been this many cases diagnosed in your county or city or whatever, and there have been this many deaths, and it's like, oh great, now I've got to go be cheery, and get my job done. So yeah, you're absolutely right. You got to find a way to, I guess, keep your positivity going.
Yes, and I it's interesting because I just finished a book called The Antidote. What's the subtitle? It's basically a self-help book for people who hate positive thinking. So okay. It's talking about stoicism and like fear setting, imagining the worst case scenario, and then it's not going to be so bad, thinking about the fact that you're mortal and you're going to die. I think that's taking it too far. But there is a lot of value, I think, in sort of normalizing some of this stuff. You don't have to always paint a rosy picture and always think the best and project that things are going to go perfect. That's kind of at the heart of all the productivity advice about cutting yourself a break, because that's what a lot of us will tend to do, is to project for our day, for our week. Everything is going to go just perfectly, swimmingly, and I'm going to be able to get 10 things done. And you're not going to be able to get 10 things done. You're going to be able to get 3 things done. And if you look at the numbers, you probably realize that. But if you don't look at the numbers, just having that system, that scaffolding in place, that those constraints, that actually allows you to be more productive. Then you don't wake up in the morning and you think, oh man, I've got 10 things that I've got to do today. This is going to be such a hard day and I'm so tired. I don't know why I'm so tired. I don't know why I feel like this, but there's just no way I'm going to get all that stuff. Well, you're right. At that point, you're not going to get any of it done. So you've defeated yourself before you've even started. It's interesting to me, all this productivity stuff, the more I understand it, the more it's just tricking ourselves into doing what we should be doing.
Well, and that's one of the reasons I think I enjoy talking to you so much is first of all, you are a serious student of it. And so much of it does, I'm afraid, as people listen to this, they may dismiss certain things that we both say because it does sound like you're just tricking yourself. But on the other hand, that sounds like one of the keys to life. However you get through the day or whatever you enjoy or look forward to, part of tricking yourself is, okay, I've got to do my 9 to 5. If you have that mindset, 9 to 5, so I can go and do this on weekends and afford to do this on weekends. And so that's kind of a trickery there. And I think there are different levels of trickery, and that is to me what you're saying.
Yeah. And then also kind of related to that is the not connecting to or wishing that things were different, better in any sort of way. So one of the things that I've really been thinking a lot about lately, especially during all of this self-isolation stuff, is the role of goals in productivity. Because the typical goal has a date associated with it, and is attached to a plan to achieve it. And maybe it's broken down into individual steps. Maybe there is appropriate margin built into it, but we almost always will assume certain things when we create those goals, even if we know that our tendency to estimate is bad and we try to accommodate for that. We really are bad at it. And so we can try to accomplish that goal, and then because of all the specifics that we've attached to it, and because everything didn't go according to plan, we can get frustrated that we're not able to achieve it by the time that we had thought. And I feel like the more I understand about productivity, the less I like the idea of goals for a lot of different things. Using the running example, the reason I got into running is because someone challenged me to run a half marathon. And I thought to myself, I hate running, so if I can teach myself to like running, that's like the ultimate test of mind over matter for me. Yeah, I'll do it. I signed up for a half marathon. I was training diligently, overtrained actually, in the week before I hurt my knee. Did not realize exactly what I had done, but I've been training for like a year and a half at that point. So I'm like, I'm running this thing anyways. My patella tendon had fallen off of my kneecap, and it was on the side of my knee. So it was painful. I didn't tear anything. I knew that it wasn't going to cause permanent damage, but I'm like, I'm running this thing. Finished. Was in a lot of pain. I remember crossing the finish line, getting the medal, thinking to myself, now what?
You won the battle and lost the war?
It was kind of depressing because everything that I had been doing in terms of my training had been leading up to that race. I got done with that race, and then it was like, okay, where do I go from here? And to make matters worse, I'd hurt myself. And this is something that a lot of people, I think, can fall into, is they get so fixated on that goal that they can end up hurting themselves. There's stories about people who are climbing Mount Everest, and they know that when they get to the base camp at like 21,000 feet, that they're going to try to do the summit the next day. They've got to get to the summit by 2 p.m. If they get there any later, they're not going to make it back alive, because night's going to come, they're going to get lost in a blizzard, they're going to freeze to death. And there's story after story after story of people who start that ascent, and it's 2 p.m., they're not at the summit, but they see the summit, it's right there. So they push through, and they get up there, and then they die because they can't get back. And I feel like that's, a lot of setting goals is not a matter of life and death, but you can get so obsessed with accomplishing a goal that you don't realize the impact that it's having on you. And James Clear, Atomic Habits, is kind of presents the solution, I think, to a lot healthier way to do this. He talks about identity-based habits, and how instead of trying to accomplish a goal of running a half marathon, for example, I should have just identified as a runner. And that's what I did after I took 6 weeks off and my knee didn't get any better. So then I did 6 weeks of physical therapy. Then I started running again, and I increased my distance too fast. So I took another 6 weeks off because I was dealing with plantar fasciitis. And then it was like, okay, I got to change something. I got to change my approach. And at that point, it was almost like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to run another half marathon again. But I had grown accustomed to enjoying the runs. And so read that book, Atomic Habits, about the same time. And I'm like, okay, I am not going to identify with accomplishing this goal. I'm going to identify with going for a run. I'm going to identify as a runner. What does a runner do? They run. They don't run a certain distance. They don't run a certain speed. They don't run a certain length. They just run, and they enjoy running because that's the process. Same thing with writing. What does a writer do? They write. They don't write 1,000 words in an hour and publish a blog post every day. They just show up and write because they love the process. You can learn to love the process, whatever it is you're trying to create or produce or whatever. And I think that's the healthier approach to a lot of this stuff. As it comes to productivity, especially during this quarantine, this self-isolation, that would be my advice to people, is figure out the smallest thing you can do to move the needle on the things that are important to you. And then just learn to love that thing. Show up every single day, do that thing. Don't get worried about, well, I got to crank out 2,000 words here by tomorrow, or I'm off the pace of publishing my book. If you take that approach now, it's not going to work.
Well, what's the old saying that it's not the journey, it's not the destination, but the journey? And
Yep.
that sounds like a lot of what you went through with the running.
Yeah, and I don't think you have to go through a situation like that to understand that, which is why I want to share that and communicate that to people here today. Is that especially now, if you are going to try and get something done, the thing that you should be trying to get done is the establishment of the positive habits. This is kind of a reset period that we find ourselves in. And so when I do productivity coaching with a lot of people, the thing that they want help with is the morning routine. And the thing they always push back against is, I don't have time. Well, you probably have time now. It's not 100% the case, but the commute is gone. All of the extra stuff is gone. So you kind of have this blank canvas, in essence, to work with. And yes, there are a lot of other things that are counterbalancing that, like the distractions, like we talked about. But now is a great opportunity to think about what are the things that really move the needle for the things that are important to me, and to put those things on your schedule. Time blocking is the way I'd recommend people do that. But you don't have to do that. You could say, I'm going to just do a one Pomodoro for my writing habit, every single day, or one Pomodoro for putting together outlines for my podcast, or whatever, project you want to work on. But just show up every day. That's the important thing. Build those wins, even if you don't get a lot done. In fact, James Clear talks about that in the book, because when it comes to exercise, he's a big weightlifter. And he says that there are days when he just doesn't have it. And he knows that going in. He just doesn't want to be there. And he said those are the most important days. The bad workouts are the most important ones, because he didn't break the chain. And that allows him to have the good workout the next day.
LinkedIn Jobs is supporting MacVoices. You know what makes your business go and grow? Good people. Good salespeople, good service people, good design people, good marketing people. Pick a function at your company, and it's the people behind it that make it great. And that's why LinkedIn Jobs is so important. LinkedIn Jobs not only helps you find the right people, but it helps you find them easily. That's important since you have one or two other things to do during the day. I'm on LinkedIn. You're on LinkedIn. Or you should be. If someone in business isn't on LinkedIn, I tend to ask why, and then I go to the next person who is. That's because I know that the candidates on LinkedIn are screened for hard and soft skills to make the hire not just fast, but right. There's a reason that LinkedIn Jobs is rated the #1 hiring platform for delivering quality hires. And that same reason is why someone is hired every 8 seconds with LinkedIn. Tap into that power as you make your next hire. Find the right person for your business today with LinkedIn Jobs. You can pay what you want and get the first $50 off. Just visit linkedin.com/MacVoices. Again, that's linkedin.com/MacVoices to get $50 off your first job post. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks to LinkedIn Jobs for their support of MacVoices. So let's go back to the timing course for a second, or time blocking course, excuse me. I want to make sure we get the details out there for folks that know where to get it and how to get it.
Yeah, to be honest, there's just a blog post that has some information on it right now. I can send you the link, but it's the sweetsetup.com/simplified-time-management-course. And that will get you the details on the videos. There's 5 videos which explain time blocking. And it's kind of interesting because this is MacVoices. I don't think we've talked about any technology yet.
It's about time.
Yeah. So those 5 videos are basically the practice of it, and you can use that with a lot of different tools. There are also 2 videos in the course on how to implement time blocking using Fantastical, which is just the calendar app that I prefer. But that video would show you how to do it with any other digital calendaring application as well. The big value there being that you could take your calendars, which have all your meetings and appointments, have those visible, and then transfer those to your planning calendar first. And then there's another video which shows you how to use time blocking inside of GoodNotes, which is a great hybrid option because GoodNotes allows you to use PDF templates. And this is actually what I had been doing for a very long time. as I am home now all the time, I find myself gravitating towards the paper pen, the analog tools. There's just something about forcing yourself to slow down that I'm finding I prefer right now. But GoodNotes is a phenomenal application, and I really like the ability to bring in those templates and to combine basically the benefits of analog and digital than using your iPad and your Apple Pencil.
Okay. And of course, I will have links in the show notes to that course, where it ends up being as this gets published, to make sure that folks can find it. Because I think it is, at this time, it may or may not be a good time to start reevaluating how you handle your planning or your evaluations or your scheduling or whatever. But it also may be the ideal time, because it may be, if you don't feel like you're able to manage things right now, that might be a good place to start. And Mike, I know I've been having people on the show here during this time, a lot of different approaches. It kind of struck me the other day that so many of the people that I have on MacVoices on a regular basis usually are people that have already worked from home for a long time. Some people that go to the office, whatever office it happens to be, but most of them, are set up at home and working. So, sharing some of their tips and ideas. And you're right, we didn't do a lot of technology in this, but I think this was a good, important conceptual thing. Instead of just saying, this iPad versus this MacBook Pro, those are tools. This is all conceptual in approach, and I think that's just as critical, if not more so.
Yeah, and I think there is a technical tangent to everything that we have talked about here, because now, especially, I think for people who maybe aren't used to working from home, they're looking and they're wondering, how should I set up some systems so that I can work from home? And there is going to be lots of new and shiny that people will be tempted to try. So I would love to just give a couple of tips for choosing the right tools, whether they be analog or digital. But I think this especially applies to digital because there are so many options for applications, for task managers, things like that. Number one would be to only select tools that solve a problem that you have. So, for example, one of the apps that has gotten a lot of buzz lately is Notion. And Notion is a really powerful application. You can do some really cool stuff with it. I personally don't use it because it doesn't solve any one thing for me. And I get questions from people all the time, like, so what's the deal with Notion? Should I be moving all my tasks into Notion, or should I use it to replace Evernote? And no, you should not be looking to replace a tool that is firmly entrenched in your workflow right now by learning a completely new system. Just because it works for somebody else doesn't mean that it is going to work for you. So don't invest the time trying to get everything over. If you can see that this thing is going to help you in a specific way, then go ahead and look at it. Do some digging and see if it really is a good fit for you. But don't just follow the new and shiny and hope that something is going to do a better job than what you currently have. Then the other thing is, I find myself right now, even though I have all of these habits, I find myself struggling sometimes to stick with them, like journaling, for example. Journaling is something I understand the value of it 100%, but still when this started, I found myself slipping in my journaling habit. So I beat myself up, get mad at myself, and then get back on the bandwagon, right? But those things that even those firmly entrenched habits, like journaling, the reason that some of those things can fall off is because things aren't normal and we're all going through stuff, emotional stuff, trying to figure things out. And so those kinds of things can fall by the wayside. And to minimize the chances of that happening, now more than ever, I think it's important that you pick tools that bring you joy, which is why I'm doing a lot of stuff with my fancy fountain pens and analog in my notebook, because I really I look forward to using a different fancy fountain pen, like picking the fountain pen. Yeah, I don't have a ton of them. I got a few of them though. And I like the fact that as I'm thinking about planning tomorrow, having to choose which fountain pen to use, that's something that I get giddy about. It sounds stupid, but it's true. It's like, oh, could I use this one? Maybe I should use that one. Like they're all my favorites, And so it's something that I look forward to doing, and that helps me to show up every day and to plan my day, even though it takes a couple of minutes. But there's a lot of things about an application that can spark joy for you. I think number one for a lot of people is going to be the user interface. For example, I'm an OmniFocus user. I think OmniFocus is a great tool. I think that I'm firmly entrenched in it, but I find myself tempted to switch over to things. And if I were giving advice to somebody who's trying to use a task manager for the first time right now, because they do have a need for it, I would absolutely say look at things because it looks a lot better. And the fact that it looks a lot better means that when you open it, you're gonna smile. You're gonna have joy when you go to look at your task list instead of dread. That's going to be really, really important right now.
I think those are amazingly useful tips. We had a pre-show. We were talking about a particular software that I just hate with a burning, serious, white-hot passion. And you are right. I mean, I find that when I am forced to open that, which I am every day, that I grind my teeth a little bit. And it's kind of completely irrational because it functions okay about 80% of the time, but there are those things about it that just annoy the daylights out of me. And that's one I have to use, and so I've got to find a way to deal with that myself. But if you have an option to choose the things, man, don't find something that you really like. I have to do it because I've always used it, and that just means I always will use it. Look around. That itself is a nice little distraction that will probably make you feel good, if nothing else.
Exactly.
Good, real good advice. Real good advice. I think we ended on a high note there.
Excellent.
Now, I know, before we get out of here, I do want to mention that you started another project that you have been talking about for a while, and you're going to come back this next time with your wife, I hope, to talk about that. But talk about the new project.
Deal. Yeah, so now that I've told you don't try to do too much and start too many new things, I am doing too much and starting too many new things. No, this is not my baby, though. I started a podcast with my wife, which we were talking about last year when we saw you at MacStock, I believe, called The Intentional Family. And this is something that has been in development for a very long time because we have done things with our family. Actually, my wife and I, real briefly, the origin story of this, we got away for an overnight and we were at a coffee shop and we just were sitting down talking about what do we want our relationship with our kids to look like when they are 16, 17, 18 years old. And then working backwards from there, what are the things that we need to do now in order to build that platform where we can speak into their lives and they care what we have to say. And not saying that we never make mistakes, but we were intentional. That's really what it comes down to. And we've been doing things like we've got Schmitz Family Core Values. Before we started quarantining, I was doing a one-on-one with my kids every other week, or a different child every week. I'd just go to a coffee shop, we play games, we talk, things like that. People would come over to our house, they'd see some of the stuff that we do, and they'd be like, "Oh, so what's the deal with that thing there?" And we explain the system behind it. Like, "Oh, that's awesome. I want to steal that." I'm like, go ahead. So we just wanted to share what we have been doing. I shared at the beginning of this episode, I feel like this is an opportunity for a lot of families to sow some seeds of intentionality and build the relationships. And so we knew that when this was coming down the pike, like it's now or never. We got to get this thing out. So we recorded the first episode. It's at intentionalfamily.fm. But I introduced the first episode. I said, I'm the co-host. My wife is the host. I'm doing this because I have some podcast experience, but she has a lot to share. I have other platforms where I can talk about this stuff, but I feel like she really has an understanding and a gifting for a lot of this stuff too. That the reason I'm able to do the things that I'm able to do is because my wife is a rock star. So I'm basically putting this in her hands, and she's the one putting together the outlines and the content and what we're going to talk about. I'm just there to help support her and to get things edited and published and stuff like that.
Well, I really mean it. And when you all talked to me about this at MacStock, I thought it was such a great idea. because you were sharing some of the things with me, and I loved that idea that you're looking farther out and then figuring out, okay, now how do we get to that milestone or that objective? Even though we talked about not setting objectives, that seems like a pretty good objective to set. So yeah, by all means, let's get the two of you back here. Block out some time, please, for me.
All right.
and we will go through it in a little more detail because I think it's a really intriguing thing. And this might be a good time for folks to, contemplate a little bit, maybe not necessarily implement it yet, but start to contemplate what they want, what their objectives look like and how to get things out of it. So the URL one more time is
intentionalfamily.fm.
Great. Now we covered that, so let's wrap up by finding out where folks can find you on any social media or any. Are you still doing social media at all, so people can ask questions?
A little bit. I'm basically on Twitter. That's it, and my Twitter handle is @bobbleheadjoe because Mike Schmitz is always taken.
Okay, and of course we can also find you at the Sweet Setup, authoring articles and courses and everything else.
Yep. All of the tech stuff is going to be at thesweetsetup.com. And then Intentional Family is the newest project with Rachel, the other podcast that I do. I do Bookworm with Joe Bulig. That's at bookworm.fm. And Focused with David Sparks. And that is on the Relay Network. So relay.fm/focused.
Great. Mike, thanks so much for the time. This was a lot of fun. We got some laughs in, and I think hopefully we gave some folks permission maybe not to be as hyper productivity focused during this challenging time.
Yep. Do the best with what you've got. Don't worry about the rest.
Sound advice. We want to see a Mike Schmitz t-shirt with that on it next time.
All right.
Take care. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chuck.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. As I said during the conversation with Mike, we've been talking to a lot of different people about a lot of different productivity tips, and I think if anything, it just proves that not one single thing works for everyone. So dip in and out of all of them, take what works for you, and keep on going. But by all means, and above all, stay safe. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.